Hello, SYNGAP land. Mike Grellia here, episode 143 of SYNGAP10. Today's June 18th, 2024. Where have I been for 18 days? Well, first of all, I went to Bio. Bio is like a 4-day conference in San Diego. It's bonkers. Lots going on. I did a lot of meeting people and connecting and learning about what's going on. Two things I want to share with you. One, Nasha Fitter beat me to the punch, making a really cool LinkedIn post, kind of summing up some thoughts. I share that at the top of the show notes. Please check that out. In there is a picture of me, Nasha, and Nicole Boyce. Nicole Boyce was the founder and CEO of Global Genes when I met her, and she had a huge impact on me in creating SRF. So this picture means a lot to me. And then Nasha I met about a year later. I say this in my comment on her post, and she has done a lot to give me good advice that we use to make SRF successful. So the cover of this episode, by the way, is me and Nasha standing in front of a SYNGAP Research Fund logo, and that's cool because this logo was in like the patient advocacy pavilion at Bio. So we're really, by me going to this meeting and by getting a logo out and about and talking in all these meetings, we're really doing the work of putting SYNGAP on the map in front of the biotech sector. And I'll tell you, our CSO was there too, Catherine Eldy. And Catherine got up on the mic and asked a question of the CEO of Amgen about the pricing of Ravicti. And I'll tell you guys, that was full-blown patient advocacy in action, right? That was a mom and a patient standing up and saying to the CEO of a pharma company, hey, your drug really helps our kids. How come it's so darn expensive? And what are you going to do about that? Good job, Catherine. That was truly impressive. And I'm sure if Amber Freed had been there, she would have stood up and given you a standing ovation alone. So what else have I been? That's only 5 days. Mike, why are you a week late? Well, we've been working hard on grants. I want to thank Aaron Harding and Sarah Driscoll and Lauren for working really hard on getting these grant agreements out, again, with Catherine's input. We had a board meeting. We approved a number of grants, which we will do press releases on. If you like writing press releases, we need volunteers. I need help on these. But that's been a ton of work. And though I signed off on, I think, 4 grants this morning. So that's super exciting. Those grant agreements are now in the various institutions. People are signing them. We'll send checks. Work will get done to bring us closer to a therapy for SYNGAP1. All this stuff takes money, so I want to applaud our fundraising success lately. Peter Halliburton, Heather Mestemaker, Aaron Harding, Justin Albrecht, and Callie Worth all raised money through the $1 Million Bike Ride. The total online right now is $45,000. That will be matched by an additional $30,000 from Penn. That's a $75,000 grant that Penn will award to a scientist, hopefully with some input from us, and to do additional work on SYNGAP1. So, tremendous work, team. Great job, Aaron. This has been Aaron's baby since the beginning, and he's made it happen because Aaron Harding makes things happen. It's just amazing. I also want to congratulate Blane and Ashley Dallen in Canada. They raised $15,000 via a tournament that they hosted. Great work, guys. If we were all like Blane and Ashley and hosted tournaments and made things happen, imagine how much money we would have to accelerate science and research. So that's exciting. Speaking of grants, one of the grants we gave was to Colorado, and I sort of led with that last week. I said I was so excited. We're going to have a second natural history site at Colorado. I was just so excited. And I was not expecting like 5 of you to be like, oh, great, I'm going to cancel my CHOP appointment. Let me know when I can go to Colorado. Do not cancel your CHOP appointment, right? Colorado is ramping up. CHOP was tearing it up and really did an amazing job of getting a lot of patients seen. I don't know how quickly CHOP is going to get to that place, right? So yes, we have signed a grant. Yes, Colorado will start seeing patients. Yes, we will tell you when it's go time. These things take time. This is why natural history studies are so hard to do and are so expensive, because you need groups like SRF who can fund them and who can do all the behind the scenes logistics. So do not cancel your CHOP appointments. Keep going to CHOP. Keep the CHOP dance card full. Keep getting that data into CHOP. As soon as we can start enrolling at Colorado, I will tell you that, and we will get people in there. But also remember, please, there's at least 2 patients I'm aware of on the West Coast who just couldn't go to CHOP to save their life. Not an option, right? Put in their Syngapian in a plane. They've never been in a plane or for a variety of reasons that you'd understand. I mean, if you think about it, a lot of them are behaviors, right? Oh my gosh, he hasn't been on a plane in 10 years. He hasn't been on a plane in 5 years. Last time he was on a plane, he tore something apart. Like, if you think about how Eskimos have a lot of words for snow, right? SYNGAP families should have as many words for behaviors, right? There's so many different ways in which a Syngapian could lose it and tear things apart. Anyway, why did I go down this rabbit hole? Because there are some families on the West Coast who are really sad they couldn't go to CHOP, and they are excited that they can drive for 1 or 2 days to go to Colorado instead. So obviously these people will jump in first, and then we will let people know when there are spots. It's going to take time, guys. Do not cancel your CHOP appointments. Keep going to CHOP. We cannot get that data in there fast enough. This was a topic of conversation at MDBR, and I completely agree. If you were able to get yourself and your Syngapian in a plane, get to CHOP, take part in the natural history study, take advantage of the clinical advice that is there, get your data in there. Let's get closer to trials. Speaking of trials, last week I shared about this industry conversation I had where they asked me about intrathecal and if we would really want to do an intrathecal. Another industry person called me up and they were like, tell us about Prevalence again. And I was like, really? And they're like, yeah, no, just walk us through it. Because we just want to understand exactly why we think SYNGAP is so underdiagnosed. And I want to share this with you because we all need these talking points. And like all of my podcasts, I want to share it because I want industry to reference it and me to be able to send it to them. First, why we believe SYNGAP is so underdiagnosed, right? Think about other rare diseases that you've heard of. Rett, Angelman, Dravet, SCN2A, etc., KCN, everything. All these diseases, these children start seizing so early. Like you'd have to be a total idiot to miss these kids. They're having seizures in the first year of life. They're seizing, right? Doctor genetic testing done. Our kids do not seize for the first 2 years, right? So unlike other monogenic diseases, the phenotype of SYNGAP is subtle, almost nefarious, right? For the first 2 years, our kids are a little slow. And then around age 2, they begin with absent seizures, but not just absent seizures, atypical absent seizures. What makes our seizures atypical? The postictal period is short. Mike, why are you speaking Greek? I don't know. Normally, after an absent seizure, people have a period where they're like, whoa, spaced out, right? Atypical absent seizures means that period post-seizure, the postictal period, is short to non-existent, which means our kids have absent seizures and then just keep going. And then just keep going, right? And so it's really hard to see in a kid that you've already said this kid's a little slow, they're getting speech therapy, I don't know what's going on with this little 3-year-old. How are you even supposed to catch that, right? So because of a slow, moving, and nefarious phenotype, presentation of disease, our kids are really hard to catch. At some point, as their symptoms get more pronounced, or if you're lucky enough to have a clinician who says something's not right, let's order genetic testing. One of those two things has to happen. Then you get a genetic test. Then, if it's a protein truncating variant, right? Frame shift, nonsense. It's pathogenic. But if it's a missense variant, they don't know what to do. So that issue number 1, subtle phenotype. Issue number 2, many of our predicted mutations are missense, and those are put into the VUS category. What is a VUS? A variant of uncertain significance. What is that? That's a fancy way for doctors to say, I don't know, because they hate saying that. So they throw them in the VUS pile, and they kind of look at it and say, I don't know. That's why the SYNGAP Research Fund is funding so much research to get people out of that pile. But that's another reason why we're underdiagnosed. Okay, but how many are there, Mike? We know about 450 patients in the US. How many do we think there are? Okay, well, let's answer that question. Go to Lopez Riviera 2019. By the way, I wrote a blog about this years ago, and most of what I'm saying is regurgitating these points, but I'm trying to do it semi-cogently and semi-crisply. Go to that blog. I think the short link is syngap.fund/incidents, or the long link is in the show notes. But punchline is this. In that blog, you look at cohort studies of people with intellectual disability. And what that means is they walked into a room of 300, 500, 30, 20, 100, whatever, people with intellectual disability, and they gave them all genetic testing. And every single time, some significant percentage of that room had SYNGAP1. Every single time in the cases I reference, which is a little self-reinforcing, which I'll concede. But like 5%, 3%, 2%, 1%. In one case, it was 0.5%. Recent Danish study, they did 200 people, one of the 200, that's 0.5%. But every study in which they did this, 0.5% of that population had SYNGAP1. And because of that, the talking point in the community has been, well, 1% of people with intellectual disability have SYNGAP1. Pretty good. And one of these studies was huge. It was the Triple D study in the UK. Okay, so what does that mean? What is 1% of people with ID? Well, ID sort of by definition is, few standard deviations away from the mean, meaning like basically 1% of a population has intellectual disability. So if 1% of that population has SYNGAP, 1% of 1%. How many people live in America? 350 million. What's 1% of 350 million? 3.5 million. 3.5 million people in the US have intellectual disability. What's 1% of 350 million? 35,000. What if it's really only 0.5%? 17,500. I can do math all day. 17,500 is 17,000 more than what we have found so far. So that's one way of looking at it. Another way of looking at it, if you really want to get fancy, is you go to that Lopez Riviera paper, which I just said I was doing and I didn't, and you say, okay, what do you think, Lopez Riviera? Big genetic study where they modeled all these mutations and predicted how many people in 100,000 births would have SYNGAP1. And the prediction there was 1 in that 100,000 would have a protein truncating variant, and 5 in that 100,000 would have a missense variant. Now, the missense variants are variants of uncertain significance. Some of them are pathogenic, some of them are not. For the sake of argument, because I hate arguing about this stuff, let's assume 20% of those missenses are pathogenic. And this is kind of in line with what I'm hearing from different places working on this, right? So back of the envelope, 1 per 100,000 patients has a protein truncating variant, which is definitely pathogenic. 5 per 100,000 have a missense variant. Let's say 20% or one of those is pathogenic. So if we're only counting the protein truncating variants, I get 1 per 100,000 pathogenic. And if we're counting protein truncating and missense and we're taking a really conservative slice of the missense, 2 per 100,000 are pathogenic. Well, how many people are born in the US every year? The birth cohort in the US in 2023 is 3.6 million. How many 100,000s in 3.6 million? 36. So that would mean that every year in the United States of America, there's 36 protein truncating variants born. And another 36 at least pathogenic missense variants born. That's 72 patients a year. Catherine is like 65, 66. What's 72 times 65? 4,680. Which is more than 10 times what we have right now. 10 times. If I take the most conservative way forward, I get to a number 10 times bigger than what we know. If I take another approach, which was the 1% of 1%, which is perfectly defensible, I get to, I should know this, like a lot more. I'm a little embarrassed right now. 1, 2, 3, 40 times what we know. That's crazy. That's crazy. And then you have to ask yourself, okay, Mike, if this is true, where are all these kids? Where are all these SYNGAPians we haven't found? Well, first of all, you try getting genetic testing, right? A ton of them are sitting in the back of a room or in an autism school, heavily medicated and heavily sedated. That's where they are, right? Those are the lucky ones. The unlucky ones are probably in jail. And it's not hard to imagine what kind of unfortunate things might be happening to kids with SYNGAP who aren't diagnosed and haven't been taken care of. But it's really easy to understand that we have diagnosed the tip of the iceberg. So to my industry friends who are looking for a little more clarity on where all the SYNGAPians are, they're out there. We just need to get them diagnosed. So please read the blog and let us know if you want to help us find more SYNGAPians. I want to talk about calendar management and advocacy. There's a few important things here. Rare Across America is in 28 days. This is run by the Every Life Foundation. The Every Life Foundation is excellent. Register now, links in the show notes. And in 28 days, they will set up meetings for you with your local elected officials closer to you, like in-home offices. So it's an easy way to dip your toe into advocacy. The conference is in 170 days. That's less than half a year away. Registration is live. Registration is live. Thank you, Lauren and Stacy, for all the hard work here. We are ready, for you to register. Please register for the conference December 5th. If you are a SYNGAP family, there is nowhere else you should be. There is nowhere else you should be. Come to the conference. Let's talk about blood donation. We have a biobank in partnership with Combined Brain. Combined Brain is a large professionally managed umbrella group full of tremendous people led by Dr. Terry Jo Bichelle, who was an angel, my mom, and one of my heroes. And the genius of Terry Jo Bichelle is pretty much endless. And she was like, "God, it's really hard for us to get plasma, and doing plasma at conferences is exhausting, and some people don't travel with their kids, but there's all these patient advocacy groups in Combined Brain having meetings. Why don't we just go to those meetings and collect the blood at the different meetings?" Brilliant. So this year, in the balance of the year, SCXBP1 will be having a conference in Philadelphia. If you're anywhere near Philadelphia, go and get your blood collected. Mira Syndrome, and that's an impressive group too. Also in July, in fact, the next week, we'll also be having a conference in Philadelphia. So if you're in Philadelphia, you have no excuse not to be in the biobank. Please reach out to us. Let's get you signed up. You can go to the conference, walk in, be like, "I'm here to give blood." You get shown to a nice room. Very, very nice people take blood. They have their act together so well. They're great with kids. It's all they do. It's amazing. So that's if you're in Philly. If you're in Seattle, July 29th, the HNRNPH2 conference. Just be glad. I mean, SYNGAP1 is a terrible disease, but at least you can say our gene. So you can go to Seattle. If you're in Atlanta, Suzanne, rally the troops. The PWS/USP7 conference is in September. And then the Combined Brain conference will be in Kansas City in September 29th. So that's a lot of conferences. And if you miss all of those, bring your Syngapian to the SYNGAP1 conference at the Omni in LA on December 5th. And by the way, we're having our own Syngap conference, but we are having it in parallel with SLC 6A1 led by Amber Freed, who's also a hero of mine, and Cure Gaba A led by Monica E. I can't really say her last name, is long. But 3 amazing conferences all together. It's going to be fun. So wrapping up, I want to give a couple of shout outs. First, I want to give a shout out to Zoe. As you know, SYNGAP Awareness Day is in 3 days, and Global Genes called us and said, "Hey, we want to do an article about one of your families for SYNGAP Awareness Day," and we put them in touch with Zoe, and there's a great article up on the Global Genes website, which is a very big website, about Zoe and her family's journey. So check out that link in our show notes on our socials. It's great. And then I want to end by talking a little bit about Pavel. Pavel Garevich was one of the early adopters. He's in New York of SRF. He was our board chair for I think a couple of years, and then he stood down and let Suzanne take that. But he's been working behind the scenes tirelessly. He's led grants. He's led partnerships. He has done a lot. And congratulations, Pavel. He got a cool new job where he's not allowed to be on boards because finance regulation rules, whatever. And so we've lost Pavel on the board, but Pavel is still very much part of the SYNGAP Research Fund family, and I just want to acknowledge what an incredible contribution he's made. I think if we ever got around to giving people awards at the end of the year, which we should probably do, we will make a Pavel Award, and it will go for the person who was the most productive and the lowest profile. Like Pavel just sits back, listens, misses nothing, and gets what needs to get done. He is exceptional, and I'm so grateful to him for all of his contributions to SRF. Wrapping up, if you're newly diagnosed, never forget there's a lot of resources for you. If this is the first podcast you're listening to, go to syngap.fund/resources, start listening. And then social matters. Social media is how people find us, guys. I talked to a number of families in the past week who I'll tell you one last story now that I think about it. Actually, I should have led with this story. This story is amazing. There was a dad who got handed a diagnosis in the morning at a hospital. And he gets on the Google, he searches for SYNGAP1. And because we have such a great ground game on social, right? YouTube, over 1,000 followers. Twitter, over 10,000 followers. LinkedIn, over 3,600 followers. Insta, TikTok. Is that even legal anymore? Anyway, whatever. Because we have all of this social media, this dad found us by noon. And he puts in a message, and then Lauren gets it, and Virginia, boom, 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 all the people, all the things. Bing, bing, bing. I get a message. Mike, you got to talk to this guy. 8 o'clock at night for me. He was on the East Coast, so it was pretty late for him. I'm talking to Dad. And I'm like, "Hey, man, it's your first day. Just got diagnosed. I know it feels like bad news, but it's kind of good news that now you know." And he's like, "No, tell me. I want to know everything." And this guy was eager. And I was like, "All right, sit down." And I was like, "You need to do this, you 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 need to do this." Boom. I said, "Does your head hurt yet?" He said, "Yeah." I said, "Okay, I'm done." And this dad, I'll talk more about him in the next episode, but it happened in a day, right? For me, it took, I don't even know how long it took to go from diagnosis to having a clue what was going on, in part because of what I'd built with SRF. But this dad, within a day, was like, "Okay, here's the state of research in your disease. Here's what you need to do to help your kid. Here's the team that's here to support you. It's going to be okay." His daughter's 2. Amazing work, you guys. And that's because of every single one of you who donates your time, your money, your blood, all the things to make SRF successful so we can help every family out there as they get diagnosed. Thank you very much. See you soon. Happy SYNGAP Awareness Day.